it's me, Casey, with Culture Wow. Now I'm going to talk about two subjects very near and dear to my heart. The George W. Bush administration and the Star Wars Prequel Trilogy are often criticized harshly for their directing, their policies, and the amount of wars that are in them. But today, I'm going to give you 10 reasons that the George Bush administration and the Star Wars Prequel Trilogy are better than you remember. In the original trilogy, technological limitations made it so that George Lucas couldn't fulfill his original vision of making Yoda into a tiny little acrobatic kung fu midget. But in the prequel trilogy, he fixed his mistake and used CGI. This computer technology allows Yoda to be expressive in ways that he was not able to before. And we finally get the classic fight scene between Yoda and Count Dooku that we've been wanting since episode 4. Rising oil prices meant that instead of driving around all day, families now got the chance to stay at home and spend some quality time together. Perhaps to watch their VHS copy of The Phantom Menace another time. Yes, family was the most important thing in the early 2000s, and it's no wonder why my father stopped talking to me soon after Obama was elected. Jar Binks, the lovable comedic relief character, is now synonymous with the name Star Wars. But if you pay close attention, you will realize that he appears less and less in each movie as the series goes on. Jar Jar isn't even in episode 4 at all, and this was a great writing choice by George Lucas in order to establish that the series was becoming more and more serious. Relegating him to a bit part in episode 3, it sets a very great dramatic tone. Vice President Dick Cheney's hunting accident in 2006 gave the country a much-needed comic relief in a time of uncertainty. Saturday Night Live had weeks worth of material, just off of one little shoot to the face. And my family would laugh heartily at those sketches since we couldn't drive anywhere. One day I hope I can thank Dick Cheney personally for being such a great character. Now how could I make this list without bringing up the pod racing scene? It's just one of the most iconic things in Star Wars. Now I saw episode 1 when I was 3 years old, so at that time I had no clue what a Star War or a pod race or a Gungan were. But as soon as I saw little Annie fire up his rocket sleigh looking thing, I was hooked. I was a Star Wars fan for life. Until episode 7 came along and ruined it, but that's besides the point. Now, he may not have found the WMDs in Iraq, but George Bush did succeed in removing Saddam Hussein from power, and since then, Iraq has been transformed into the shining utopia of modern society that it is today. I'm super thankful that George Lucas didn't decide to put Harrison Ford into the prequel trilogy. You know, whenever I look at Harrison, I just see a sad old man that just wants to go to sleep, and it would have made the movies way too depressing, trust me. Now, George Bush was definitely the chillest president since Bill Clinton. He had just this casual air about him. You could tell that he really didn't bother to read his speeches beforehand or really study up on anything. And with that in mind, it's really impressive that he was so coherent during his whole presidency. The prequel trilogies have General Grievous, the best character in Star Wars. Now, he's some kind of lizard man that got put into a robot or something. That's not really important. But what is important is the move he does where he goes and flings all the lightsabers around with like 4 arms. That was badass. Now, people have some fair criticisms to make about George Lucas, but I think we can all agree that the Star Wars movies would have been much worse if they had been directed by Donald Trump. I mean, Trump hasn't even directed an episode of TV, much less a Star Wars, so he would have been a terrible choice. Let's all be thankful that the Trumpster stuck to selling real estate and cheap meats, and not movies.